Welcome back to another episode of Building the Pride. I am your host, Drew, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
There we go. Building the Pride for last
Nailed
podcast.
it.
I forgot to put it up. I'm doing great. Running a little bit behind on everything today, but I think it's just because it's cold.
It is cold.
So,
I
but other
went
than that, I'm
to,
doing good. How about you?
well, I'll tell you exactly how I am. I went to work today and my car said that it was 1 degree outside. And I was like, if you're gonna be like that, why even have the degree? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I
really.
was talking. My parents spend the winter in Florida, and I called my dad and mom on the way into the office, and they're like, "So how's it going up there?" I'm like, "Well, it's 6 out,"
Yeah.
and then I looked again. It's 3 out.
Yeah, what's that?
So it's pretty brutal out there.
Yeah,
So cold, pipes freeze.
yes, they sure do. And I'm ready for spring. I have lost any charm winter has ever had, as far as I'm concerned, is gone. And
Yeah,
I just want spring. Really, I just want spring and fall. Like those are my two favorites, and everything else is just an exercise in either trying to stay cool or trying to stay warm. So it's all right. We'll get there
yeah.
soon
I
enough.
pretty much hate the cold. I'm a hunter, and obviously that's usually cold out. And I like to play ice hockey. And obviously it's cold on the ice. But outside of that, I just not a fan of the cold. I love the snow, but unfortunately you can't have it be like 72 and snowing because that's not the way that works.
Yeah, if the snow never fell in the streets or in my driveway or anywhere that I walked, I'd be fine with it. But I mean, it is pretty, but
Yeah.
it gets in the way quite a bit. And I'm grumpy enough now in my old age, I suppose, where I don't want I don't want things to hinder me in any way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I feel that.
down with
Feel
snow.
that. Yeah, I actually don't mind driving in it. I find that fun, but I also have four-wheel drive vehicle, so that makes it a little bit easier.
I mean, it is. I remember the first time I drove a 4 wheel drive vehicle, having the hand me down cars that you get when you're
As a
first learning,
teenager and all that. Yep, yep.
and it was just like, oh my god, how can you ever go back to anything else? Like you just have to get a 4 wheel drive vehicle. It's night and day. So yeah,
Yeah.
good invention.
Well,
But we're not
let's
here to
get
talk
into
about
the.
4 wheel drive, So
That's true. Let's talk news and notes around the NFL. There's like almost nothing going on out there, but there were two things. Drew, hit us up.
well, most people follow our channel because they want to know desperately what's going on with Andy Dalton, the flaming haired backup quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, who signed a 2 year deal for up to $10 million. Congratulations on staying in the league, Andy Dalton.
Yet again.
So
Defying the odds.
he'll be Bryce Young's backup for the next couple of years.
Yep.
Fine, not a big deal. A little bit more important stuff coming out of Cincinnati, with today being the first day that franchise tags can be applied. Um, we might have a tag get applied to T. Higgins. The Bengals came out in a statement and said that they are going to do what it takes in order to keep T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Trey Hendricks all on the team for next year. That if they pull that off, it will be, I think, truly remarkable, because Trey Hendricks has Hendricks or Hendrickson, I can't remember. Hendrickson, probably.
Hendrickson, I think.
Yeah. He well, it's a name of a football player, so naturally I'm terrible at it. But he has had 17 and a half sacks each of the last 2 years. Pretty good on a defense that was otherwise pretty disappointing. Jamar Chase wants to be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL by what looks like a country mile. The rumor that I heard, which I can't substantiate, was that he is looking for $40 million a year. The Justin Jefferson makes 34. So I mean, like that is
He should take 36 and be happy.
well, I mean, right? And then of course,
I'd be happy.
Well, who wouldn't? I mean, I would let those guys go out there and I'd get CTE for $36 million a year. That's no problem. And then of course, T. Higgins has been widely regarded as, if he is actually going to hit the free agent market, he might be one of the few number 2 wide receivers who are actually capable of becoming number 1 wide receivers. And it would be nearly unprecedented that a player of his caliber makes it to the wide open market. But Cincinnati said that they're willing to tag him a second time,
which I think is $26 million.
Well, so this is something that I think the NFL should probably do a little bit better job of, is that because the NFL hasn't announced what the next year's salary cap is yet, you don't know what the tags are to apply to these players.
Well, the tags are the average of it depends. So there's the franchise tag and the transition tag, right?
Yep.
And I believe the way it works is the franchise tag is the average of the top 5 highest paid at your position. And the transition tag, I believe, is the average of the top 10 highest paid at your position. So I don't think it actually matters what the cap is. It's really about who's got the big contracts at the top of your position group.
Well, it matters because then teams can effectively plan, like, if we sign the cap, this is how much room we have left, yay or nay.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So, like, not in determining, as you said correctly, what the actual tag numbers are going to be, but do those new tag numbers fit into our budget? So,
and I believe they talked about doing I forget what they call it, where another team could actually. What's that?
Oh, no, I was guessing. Go ahead. I apologize.
Oh, yeah. So where another team could actually sign him, and then if they do, they get 2 first round free draft picks.
Yeah. So
all I can think of is a restricted free agent, unrestricted. That's NHL parlance.
Well, to be fair to you, like you. We're pretty close there as well. Like, restricted free agents can also have tags applied. They're not the franchise tag or the transition tag, but they can have other tags applied to them. And then other teams can negotiate contracts with them. And then the team that holds that player's rights can agree to absorb to that contract that's been negotiated, or to let the player leave. This is what happened with Brock Wright on the roster last year, I believe. So, so you had it in there. You just didn't know it. You were good.
What's going on, LM? Thanks for joining. Appreciate you.
Yep. Always good to see you.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. I can't imagine they're going to let him go. Like you said, when was the last time a free agent, a wide receiver of his stature, hit the actual free agent market?
I don't know.
Right.
Like, so I think the idea of free agency is a little bit distorted, because when people think about free agency, obviously it's this kind of like mad rush of a piranha to snap up all the great talent on the market. But with these tags, which, to be fair, are hardly ever used, but I think that the existence of these tags has put the NFL in a situation where it's like this, like the best way to handle business under these conditions is to get your deal done with your player, because everyone knows what's going to happen in just about every facet of these situations that could happen. Like, oh, the player's going to hold out. Well, we'll fine him. Well, okay, now the player's willing to play for what the tag number was. Okay, well, we'll give you all your fines back. Like,
right.
There's no the CBA that the NFL has is an absolute gorgeous piece of work. So it's taken a lot of some of this like drama and like hostage level free agency out of the game, which I prefer that it's better this way. But we still can't figure out the tampering.
Yeah, and I did throw the details into the chat. So I was thinking NHL parlance. In the NFL, it is an exclusive franchise tag or a non-exclusive. The non-exclusive is where players can negotiate with other teams, but the teams can either match the offer sheet or let them walk. If they let them walk, they get 2 first-round picks in return for signing that player. Um, the exclusive franchise tag is the players can't negotiate with other teams. Teams must offer the average of the top 5 salaries at a player's position or 120% of that player's previous salary.
And that's
the
what T.
transition
Higgins is going to get. So
Yeah, no, I heard that it was going to be non-exclusive.
okay, but if you
first round picks is not a bad deal, right?
If you get tagged 2 times in a row, don't you have to get 120%?
I
salary?
think so. I think there's an interesting rule like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing that I think is the difference here is like he's going to be and like these are completely guaranteed, right?
Yeah, for the tags?
Yeah, if you play on the tag, it's 100% guaranteed.
Correct.
So it just comes straight off the top of the cap.
Yeah. The transition tag is similar to the non-exclusive, but it's the average of the top 10, like I mentioned before. And if the player receives an offer and their team doesn't match, they don't receive any comp picks.
Okay.
So,
well, there is one more news and note.
What? There's more than one thing going on in the NFL right now?
Well, I think that we should talk about this just briefly.
Yeah.
Ravens kicker Justin Tucker is being accused of the exact same thing that Deshaun Watson was accused of with these massage parlors.
Yep.
And there's something like, I think it's close to 16 to 20 complaints.
Yeah, I heard 16.
Yeah.
A couple more and he's going to get a contract from the Browns.
That's right. Yeah.
As well.
They're collecting these guys. So, and this all took place somewhere between 2012 and 2016. So a while ago, but I think this is going to be it for him in the NFL. Like
he had a rough year this year. Like he did not kick to his standards.
And when you have a rough year and then this shit happens, this is just has all the markings of this is a situation we don't want any part of. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Justin. But like I am curious.
Good luck in retirement.
Right, exactly. But I am curious why there doesn't seem to be the level of like shock or anger for this situation as there was for Deshaun Watson. And I want to say the difference isn't just because one's a quarterback and how much money they make, but like it has all the feelings of he's just a kicker, whatever. But like this is egregious.
I think there's a couple things. I think there's a couple things that it could be. It could be the position, right? A quarterback is far more visible. It could be the contract. It could be race, and it could be just this is the slowest time of year, and people. I know a lot of football fans don't even know this is going on. So it might just be it happens to be during the slow news day type of thing, and it's just not out there. Whereas Deshaun Watson's, if I recall correctly, happened in the playoffs, or like the first things kind of came out during like a playoff time frame when the team was still around and like people were, games were still going on. So it might just be a really like perfect timing when it comes to nobody's paying attention to the NFL right now, or at least the news isn't as prominent. So I think all of those, and it could be a combination of all of those too.
It's true. So those are the news and notes. So, hey, NFL teams, if you have guys going to massage parlors, like you might want to double check on that shit. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like let's cut this out. This is not good.
Yeah, maybe a professional development presentation during training camp
Yes.
what to do and what not to do during massages.
Hey guys, don't sexually assault women. It's just a core staple of who
Just
we are.
yes, period, end of story, right?
Did you guys talk about what Kadarius Toney did? No. What did
What
Kadarius Toney did?
Kadarius Toney. Let me do a quick
What did
Google quick
Kadarius
here.
Toney did?
Kadarius Toney's girlfriend was 7 months pregnant when he allegedly choked her. 911 call shows.
Yeah,
Sounds like he allegedly choked his 7-month-old pregnant girlfriend. I hadn't heard of it.
not a fan. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's
Speaking of, in fact, it's not just sexually assault. Let's just not assault people.
yeah. Let's just leave him alone.
Sexual or otherwise, let's just not assault people.
Yeah, seems like a sweet policy. Ended his career. Oh. Well, Kadarius
should
not looking good, buddy. Let's real bad look. Real bad look. Don't like it. Don't like it at all. Glad you're not on my team. All right, let's transition to the show's topic today, which is we're going to just talk a little bit about different draft strategies. Now, every year, Mike and I kind of rehash things like what is positional value, what is best player available, these types of things, and it is inappropriate. Probably would be inappropriate. And you're being wise right now, sir, and I appreciate.
We appreciate restraint.
Tip of the hat to you. We thought we'd do it a little bit different this year. This year we thought we would do a mock draft, a first round mock draft, and we would talk about which of these strategies might be in play for the teams in these actual situations, as opposed to just like reading a presentation to you guys, which, let's be fair, lots of people really love, and we do a good job of it. But we thought maybe this year we do something just a little bit different. So Mike is our concerto maestro, and he's going to get us all put up.
So we're going to start with a first round mock. Do we want to just highlight conceptually what the biggest draft strategies are, and then we can kind of talk about as we go through when a team would use them, or do you want to just hit them up as we go?
I think we can just do them all kind of like a sentence or two acknowledgement here before we get started. You want to do one real quick?
Well, so you already mentioned one, so I'll bring that one up. Positions of value, right?
Okay.
So the quarterback is the most valuable player in the sport. And because of that, you tend to take him at a higher draft position, even almost irregardless of their level of talent. They get boosted up because of that value. So a quarterback on a rookie deal, think about Jaden Daniels, right? He's getting paid $7 million this year. On the open market at the year he had, that's a $40 million dude, right? Like, they are getting a huge discount because the value he brings on a rookie deal. And so that position of value, so your top position of values are, and these can be debatable, but for the most part, the market has spoken, right? The way that the GMs are offering contracts to these different positions kind of create that ranking. But you essentially have 3 on the offense and 3 on the defense. On the offense, you've got your quarterback, your wide receiver, and your tackle. And on the defense, you've got your cornerback, your edge rusher, and interior defensive line. Those are the top 6. They kind of juggle back and forth in there. So those are the top 6 positions of value, and everything else kind of falls underneath that. But that is position of value in 90 seconds ish.
I'll try and be as brief. So we have 2 more to really talk about. Best player available and drafting for need. So these 2, I think, are very easy concepts to convey. They are largely do what they sound like. So drafting for need. Oh, our team doesn't have an edge rusher, a wide receiver. Like, we want to go into the draft, and we're going to basically dedicate our first selection to that position, and we'll select the guy that fits what we want and need the closest in that position in the draft. I will say that seems to be, if you can't have those things addressed prior to going to the draft, I think that's probably you're probably behind the 8 ball slightly, because you just don't know how the draft is going to go. It's outside of your control mostly. So I'm not a huge fan of drafting for need. Best player available should be a pretty straightforward concept. Like, who's the best football player available when we make a selection? Well,
regardless of position.
Yeah. So is that the case? Like, can you ever truly divorce position from talent if you're going to be making these choices? If that's the case, why don't we see, like, I think the best example of best player available that we've actually seen put in practice in the recent draft history is Michael Penix. You could make the case that Michael Penix, when it comes to how the Falcons viewed him, was the best player on their board when they were up to pick, and they picked that player even though they had just signed Kirk Cousins. So
$100 million contract.
Yeah, everyone was shocked that they would sign Kirk Cousins and then draft a quarterback, because the need seemed to have been eliminated, and that then now it felt redundant. So there was confusion as to what was going on when led to the Falcons' decision making. But so if best player available is the dictionary definition of the words, we should see more people doing that, like the Falcons did, in my opinion. So we're going to go through the draft today as a little exercise, and with an eye on basically saying, like, this is best player available, or this is drafting for need, or this is, maybe a positional value thing.
Yeah. There is another one, which is what I call the Les Snead special, F them picks, where you actually use your draft assets to get proven existing NFL players. It's sort of a draft philosophy or draft strategy insofar as you're avoiding the draft. You're using those assets for outside the draft results. So it's not how you do within the draft when it comes to which players do you pick. You're essentially eschewing those players for an unknown quantity. So Dr. D says, Brad doesn't do that. He moves to where he thinks the player will be select that he wants. He doesn't just sit there and wait to pick best player available, other than Sewell and Hutch, which just dropped into his lap. Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what he does, is he finds the guys on his big board, and if he doesn't think that they're going to fall to him, he will move up and get them. Or if his best player available on his big board is further back, he will try to drop back to acquire more assets while still getting the person that he wants. So it's kind of a mix, right? And we'll talk about that as we go. Some of these are just mixes.
Right. And that's the point of this, is that there is no true, like, Ozzie Newsome just takes best player available, or Howie Roseman just drafts for need every year. Like, that's not what this is, and that's not how these people behave. Like, there's a combination of these philosophies that go into making these picks.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, what is the reason that Brad Holmes moved up 20 spots to draft an injured wide receiver? Does that cleanly fall into any of these philosophies? I don't think so. Like, you could make a case that it falls into all of them. So,
yeah. And Brian jokes, my favorite draft questions become, which players that we don't think we have a shot at will we actually end up with, right? Like, oh, they'll never fall to us, but Brad's going to be like, I don't care. We will come to him.
Right. And so, like, Brad Holmes, me drafting the way that, applying, like, his process, whatever it is, the way that he does it, especially after the 2023 class with Branch and Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, this year, when I go and I watch the draft, I'm gonna watch who the Lions draft, and instead of being like, oh, that doesn't fit into, like, what I think, and therefore make it be a huge surprise or whatever, I'm gonna try and say, okay, like, how how these guys obviously want this player at this spot. In what way does this player fit? Like, what does this say about what kind of player or players they might want on the team? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's always fun.
Yeah. All right, we want to do this. Want to start the draft?
Sure,
With the
Mike.
Tennessee Titans?
You want odds or evens?
Evens.
Okay, I'll start it off then.
All right. So the Tennessee Titans are on the clock.
Okay, so I'm going to make these picks as if I was the general manager of the team. So if I'm the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, I don't believe that the team is in a position to allow a rookie quarterback to be successful. So even though we don't have what I would consider to be a franchise signal caller on the roster, I'm not going to force that need. I'm going to take the most talented football player in the class. And so I'm going to draft Travis Hunter just because I think he is the best player available in this class. And we'll use the rest of the free agency, which we obviously don't know, and the rest of this draft to try and get us into a place where we might be able to support a rookie quarterback in next year's offseason.
So I agree. I think that's probably what they'll do as well. And one of the things to think about when you're trying to figure out a team's draft philosophy or what a team is going to do, you have to also figure out where they're at as a team roster construction wise. If your floor, so think of floors and ceilings. Like the floor is the low, where you're at, the lowest point in your performance and quality type of thing, right? And your ceiling is like the best that you can be. If your floor, if your talent is at a low level, everybody makes you better, right? You have just a really low floor and you just need to raise that foundation up. Taking the best player available is perfect for that because literally that's going to do the most good to raise that floor, the low area of what your team is, up a level. So when you see a team like Tennessee, that best player available is typically, unless there's some generational talent at a position of value, you're just going to go best player available because it's going to do the most good for your team.
Right.
So Travis Hunter. And I think, for Cleveland, I think they're going to be, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett wants out, right?
Yep.
If they trade him, I think they're also in a similar position. And I think they take a guy like Abdul Carter. He's going to potentially replace the guy that wants out. The guy that wants out is probably going to get you a couple first round picks. So you're essentially trading that dude out for his replacement while also getting additional first round draft capital picks. We don't know what's going to happen during free agency, but my guess is Myles Garrett won't be on that team. And if so, I think they take Abdul Carter because he is not only the best player available, he's also the second highest position of value.
Okay, so I've got the Giants, and this is the first time that I think need is going to dictate a pick. So Brian Dable and Joe Sheen are the two people in charge of the New York Giants, and they don't have a signal caller worth their salt on the roster. They have some journeymen and developmental players. And if I have to hear about what is it, Tommy, and then it was some kind
DeVito?
of Tommy DeVito again. Oh my God! Like if I have to hear about Tommy DeVito again, I'm just going to lose my lunch or whatever. He's awful. But I think that these two guys have a mandate to acquire a valid starting QB this offseason. What does that look like? There are some rumors about them trading for Matthew Stafford that I've already heard. Would be an interesting.
That would not happen.
Would be interesting. Well, I mean, I think it's probably the betting market would favor betting against that happening.
Yeah.
but
they're
that would be
asking
pretty
for this
interesting.
pick
Well, that won't
in
happen.
return for him. That's
Well,
why
they're
I'm
not
saying
going to.
that.
I mean,
Yeah. And I think they would want to do Stafford right when it comes to like I'll send you to a competitive team instead of sending you to Siberia, and I don't think that they would do him dirty like that. So I just don't think that's going to happen. They'll restructure the contract that just like they have the last couple of years. Dude was playing at an elite level after Puka Nacua came back and they went on a roll. They won more playoff games than we did, and they were essentially one or two plays from beating Philadelphia and potentially could have been on a Super Bowl run. So like I don't think they're going to get rid of the linchpin to that whole process. But to
okay,
your point,
that's a pretty
that is one
generous
of the rumors
description.
for that.
But yeah, but the rumors are out there, and we'll just see how the
Yeah.
contract stuff works out between Stafford and the Rams. But assuming it doesn't work out, I do think that these guys are going to have to pick a quarterback. So I'm going to give them the kid from Miami, Cam Ward.
Yep. So Kathy, I like when you say essentially. Yeah. Thank you. So this is a mixture between need and positions of value, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, so like I think that you cannot divorce those two. I don't think that you can divorce the idea of position from any of these ideas. I just don't think that you can. I think it is the intrinsical foundation level thought that goes into who do we pick. Is that like it doesn't make sense to. I mean, like, so the best example of this is Matt Millen when he drafts 3 wide receivers 3 consecutive years in Detroit.
Yeah.
Right? You're just going to, this guy was the best. We thought he was the best for whatever reason. So we're just going to keep taking this guy at this position, regardless of how many
Until
of these
we
guys
hit.
we have. Yeah. So it just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't work that way. So I think that if you observe the behavior of these general managers, you can't say position doesn't matter. It always matters. It doesn't matter which philosophy you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you're up.
Yeah, and I think all of those come into play for New England, right? The best player available is a wide receiver, which is also a position of need, and also the third, the third highest position of value when it comes to positions of value. So I think it's a no-brainer that they take McMillan from Arizona.
Okay, so I'm on the clock with Jacksonville. So Trent Baalke's gone, so they can finally draft Michigan players. So this might be the first time. I don't know if there's a leading philosophy for making this selection. I believe personally, and the Lions have done a lot to fuel this belief in me with their way they constructed their roster, is that you win football games on the line. Do you need an excellent quarterback? Yeah, you do. But without those lines, I don't know that you can reach the very top of the NFL and like compete for Super Bowls. So they have Trayvon Walker, Josh Hines Allen, and they've signed Eric Armstead. And I think the last piece of a really, really good potentially defensive line would be Mason Graham. And so I don't know that I need an interior defensive lineman. I don't know if that's essentially a positional value pick. I don't know that they need a defensive lineman. But like I guess the one that I would probably lead with is that like I think there's a case to be made that Mason Graham's the best player on this board as it stands. And so I'll lead with that one, but I don't know that any of them are the clear-cut in-house favorites for making this pick. But I'll say Mason Graham.
Right. Yeah, and if anybody wants to know if the war in the trenches can determine your Super Bowl chances, just ask Kansas City.
Yeah.
I mean, that game was a dominant war in the trenches type of thing, and it was Philly dominating Kansas City on both sides of the ball, really. So the Raiders here, I think they're going to do the same thing that New York did. They need they need a signal caller. They need to get somebody in there, and I think they're going to go with Shedeur Sanders.
Okay. So the Jets
And
have. You have some? Were you?
no, I was saying, and the Jets are now angry that they the
Yeah.
only other first round worthy quarterback has been taken.
So I think this is really interesting because they have created a need for themselves, and probably two, to be honest. Um, they have told Aaron Rodgers that he will not be the quarterback moving forward of this team. So what does that mean for Devonte Adams? Right? I've heard that he could be released, which would be a huge deal. They'd save him a lot of cap room. And
Where are the Jets? I find the cap room while you're talking.
upper
You keep
right.
talking. There they are.
I gotta tell you, dude,
So
this guy's site, I like it, but it is so crawly
yeah.
with ads that I'm just about to the point where I'm just like, I'll just use Spot Rack, dude. This is sick. He's at the top.
Oh, he's almost $30 million in cap savings.
Right. So
Zero guaranteed salary.
yeah. So man, that could easily happen. You know, if you don't have any guaranteed salary left and I could save $30 million, it's not a bad chunk of change or whatever. So like I think that I would want this is Aaron Glenn. I don't know exactly how he's gonna want to run his team. Um QB, defensive line, defensive back. Mike, can you click on wide receiver for me? Let's see if there's anybody that pops out here. Not really. I would like to pair Garrett Wilson up with another pass catcher, but they outside of Tet McMillan, I don't know that there's a really great.
What about Barron from Texas as
He's
a
a
defensive
zone
back?
corner. So if Glenn wants to run the defense that he ran in Detroit, like Barron
Yeah.
doesn't fit that as well as Will Johnson does, who Will Johnson is also more of a zone corner, but has played man at Michigan. So I'll just give a good player to the Jets, and I'll give them Malachi Starks. But this
Yes, he
is
might be
just
searching
like,
for his Kirby Joseph,
yeah, it
right?
just might be this best player available. You know, like we're just gonna get him on the team.
And the Panthers recently signed Andy Dalton to be their backup, $8 million
Yeah, nailed
backup.
it.
Um, I don't know how they only have two needs there.
No,
I
it's
feel like half the team is a need.
yeah. We'll see.
Um, who do they have on their tackles?
It's Ekwangu. I'll look it up.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, the war, like the trenches, is a big deal. And if you have a guy like Bryce Young, you need to give him some protection. And I just don't remember who their tackles are.
So it's Ike Ekwanwu, who's not bad,
Yeah.
and Taylor Moton, who's also not bad. And then they did invest pretty heavily in their guards in last year's offseason, Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt. So I do think a defensive lineman's probably the closest you're going to get to like a position of need.
Yeah. Maybe like a Pierce or a Green.
Yeah, either one. I think it'd
Yeah.
probably
All right.
be a nice addition to this team. They traded Brian Burns last
Yeah.
year.
It's a position of value. If you're picking in the top 10, those salaries are pretty high, and to get somebody that would command 4 or 5 times, 8 times as much of that on a rookie. I mean, look at Hutch, right? We paid him what, $8 million last year, and the
Yeah,
dude's gonna get he'll sign for 36.
something something in the 30s for sure.
So
I don't
we
know.
got like essentially an additional $28 million to spend that we didn't have to because he was on a rookie deal. So that's where you start accumulating that value.
So this is an interesting pick, and like this is something that I think teams also look at is the team needs as defined by Pro Football Focus are wide receiver, tight end, and defensive lineman. Well, this is a really good draft for defensive linemen, um, and you could argue tight ends. But I'm going to give New Orleans the best tight end on the board, and that's Tyler Warren. And they can use their next round pick to get a quality defensive lineman who will eat up a bunch of snaps for them. But the idea being, I don't necessarily have to take every need right now. Is it better to get the best current defensive lineman in this class right away, or and then not have any other player really match up very well with what we want to do? Or do we try and get somebody that we know will match up well in one area, and then we have our eyes on a deep class in these other positions, and we can pick one up later on?
Yeah. I think for Chicago, they also go with both a position of need and a position of value, which is their edge. And I think they go with Green at 10.
That'd be pretty gross.
Yeah, I don't want to see that.
Yeah. So guard, tackle, defensive lineman. I think that the only two offensive linemen on San Francisco's line that you can reliably say are starters next year are Trent Williams and Dominic Puny, who was a rookie right guard. So I'm going to give them Armand Membo from Missouri. He's 20 years old. He has the ability to play tackle or interior line, so it depends. It gives them some flexibility. I think they're just going to get, quote unquote, a good football player here. Yep, that's him.
As opposed to
Oh,
a
I guess
higher.
Will Campbell's on the board. I'm not used to Will
Yeah,
Campbell being on the board
that's fair.
at this time. Will Campbell is a better overall prospect than him, so I will give him Will Campbell. I completely blanked on the fact that Will Campbell was still on the board. I'm used to
And
drafting them.
as shown by the 2 snaps that he did at right tackle, he's diverse.
He's
Got
excellent
diverse capabilities.
center all the way out to tackle versatility. Yeah, so good call, Mike.
The Cowboys are, I think, Jerry Jones likes his running backs. He's had dominant running backs whenever they've been successful. Now, granted, they haven't won a Super Bowl when they had Ezekiel Elliott, but they were very good with that. I think this is their time that they need to give Dak Prescott a little bit of opening. If you can get yourself a run game, you can buy your quarterback some time. So I think they go with the again, this is a best player available, but also I think a position of need that really helps their team.
Yeah, I feel the same way about this pick as I feel about like Tennessee not being able to support a quarterback. Like I just don't. I if you're gonna take a running back, especially in the first round, I think you would better have the offensive line in place, 4 out of 5 of them at least, to make it a to
Or at least
so that
3. You need one whole side at least, right?
I would I mean, the more the better, to be honest. But like,
You think that'll stop Jerry though? That's the real question.
well, he's never going to do what anybody else thinks he should do. But I also think that like there are positions in the NFL that are dependent upon other players on that team being able to do what they do so that they are the quote unquote the most effective. And
Yeah, I think if Will Campbell was still there, I think he takes Campbell over Genty. But I don't think he'll go for, the an 18th, up like a mid first round when you're sitting there at 12 when you've got a guy like Genty on there.
well, I will. I guess that's an odd, and I'm on the clock. Guard tackle DL. Um, I will give Kelvin Banks to the. I just think that he fits what the Viking or the Dolphins want to do better than the other tackle prospects. But this is, I mean, when you have multiple needs, like, and that's the other thing that I think gets overshined. Like when you're bad or even mediocre, and you have multiple needs, and most every team, even like the Super Bowl contending teams, have multiple needs on their rosters.
Yeah.
Like when you have multiple needs and you go out and you draft one of them, are you drafting for need? I mean, like, you didn't draft the other three positions, so is it quote unquote drafting for need if your list of needs is so broad?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I mean, you could make the argument that, like, every team in the NFL always needs more cornerback help. So anytime that any of them draft a cornerback, it's drafting for need, because you have to be 5 deep, 6 deep at that position group. So,
Yeah.
all right, man.
Colts are on the clock, and I think they take. Speaking of cornerbacks and the need of cornerbacks, I think they take Barron from Texas to help on the outside.
Sure. So I like this pick coming up here a lot. I just like this. I mean, for the matchup, to be honest, like, I'm going to give Luther Burden to the Falcons because I think they are losing like their third, fourth, and fifth wide receiver on the team. You've got Drake London as like your high point catch guy, and Luther Burden would excel as like a shallow crosser with Michael Penix. And so I just love. There's two teams that I really like for him, and that's the Falcons and the Bengals. Because I think, like, if the Bengals let T. Higgins go and Luther Burden was right there, that would be such a great combination of, like, Chase is going to go over the top, Burden's going to be under the middle, like, pick your poison. So I really like those fits for Luther Burden. So good job, Luther.
With the Cardinals, they their floor is fairly low. They kind of need quite a bit, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They list both guard and tackle as a need, and I think they will only go as far, like most teams, as their quarterback will take them. So the real question is, like, which one of those needs do they have more? I just don't think you're going to take a guard. As we come back to the whole position of value conversation, I don't think you're going to take a guard at 16 unless they are surefire super Hall of Fame kind of like generational guard talent, because the value is just not there. So that kind of leaves it down to, all right, tackle, which is one of the top six positions of value, and defensive line, which is also a top six position of value. Um, I don't know as much about Grant, Nolan, and Simmons, and I don't know enough about like how bad the Arizona tackles are and how bad they're like. What does their run game look like, or the run defense look like? Um, it's not pretty. I'm looking at their PFF scores on another screen here, and one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. They have 7 games where their run defense is graded under a 60. So that's less than ideal. Um, but their pass blocking grades, they've only got 1 game, 2 games, sorry. No, one. 1 game that was graded under a 60. So I feel like they've got the pass blocking when it comes to those three things. They had the highest team need at defensive line compared to the tackle. So I will go with Michigan because it makes me feel a lot better clicking that than anything close to a um, Buckeye.
Sure.
So,
Let's see. So Cincinnati, wide receiver, guard, defensive line. Um, looks like they're going to address their wide receiver need by keeping T. Higgins. The problem on their roster last year was defense. I believe that you build a defense from your front out. So I'm just going to check them out really quickly. So they have Sheldon Rankins on the team, who I also believe they could cut or is an unrestricted free agent. And he is their 3 tech, I believe. So I'm going to give them Walter Nolan from Ole Miss as we're filling a need here. Like, I don't think this is the best guy at the position necessarily. If Danny's listening, I'm really sorry that I don't think Walter Nolan's the best 3 tech in the class. But if you just give Joe Burrow not as big of a hole to dig himself out of every week, I think they're probably in the playoffs pretty easily. So let's shore up the defense here in Cincinnati a little bit, get back to the playoffs.
I would agree with that. They're fun to watch too. So if their defense wasn't so abysmal, they would have been in the playoffs and making some noise. All right, so Seattle, the Sea Rats, they struggle on the pass blocking side. They were pretty low ranked. Same on run blocking, so their offensive line, which shows up here as guard and center, make complete sense. Their pass rush was pretty decent. Run defense was okay, kind of middle of the pack. I think trying to take a look at some of the other things their run defense was okay. Coverage was okay. I think they just go edge. I think it's too early to take a guard or a center. We don't have any of them that are on the big board ranked high enough. And I just don't think that there's any linebackers in the class that are worth taking at 18. So we will take the best edge available with Michael Williams.
So this is pretty easy for me. Like, the Bucs need a corner. Will Johnson's the highest rated player on the board. There you go. He can play both man and zone. Like, this seems like a pick that they wouldn't even entertain trade offers for. They would just go take the guy because they didn't expect him to be there. So I really like this fit.
Will?
Yeah.
All right. And I think with Denver, I think they go through and they give their new rookie quarterback who played really, really well another weapon. And I think they take Igbuka.
Yeah. This makes
sense. I'm going to feel dirty clicking an Ohio State player.
Sure. So this is an interesting place. This is where I have Aaron Rodgers ending up next year.
Really?
Yeah. But it's more because. So.
Oh, I'm picturing a Mike Tomlin, Aaron Rodgers showdown. I just don't know.
I mean, that I do think that would be interesting. So, like, I have Russell Wilson going back to Las Vegas to play with Pete.
I can see that.
I don't remember how the ending between them worked out in Seattle, so that maybe there's still some bad blood there. I don't know. But, like, Las Vegas for, like, the 3rd year in a row is sitting in a spot where it's like, well, none of the quarterbacks that we did we draft Shedeur Sanders?
Where'd he go?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
So, like, I just think that, like, if you'll have your free agency quarterbacks done before your draft quarterbacks, obviously. Yeah. So, like, I think that, like, so I have Russell Wilson leaving Pittsburgh, going to Las Vegas, and then I don't know where Aaron ends up. Is he going to go play in Tennessee? I doubt it. Like, I think the team that has a need, that has the best chance of making the playoffs, that I can talk myself into to take worthless Aaron Rodgers, is the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I just don't know that it's going to be.
Think they've already given up on Justin Fields? I mean, because that's
I don't.
essentially what you're saying is like, yeah, we still don't think you're good enough. We'll take
Well,
the guy that played
they
horrible
said that last year.
Right.
They said that last year after Justin Fields had him at like 2-2, and then they were like, "Oh, Russell's back. He's the starter."
Well, he's a future Hall of Famer too, right? So
Right. So, but so is Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, tell me the difference.
yeah,
I mean, like,
yeah,
so, like, like if you were convinced that Justin Fields would be the guy, then you wouldn't have given the job to Russell Wilson. So, and if you did, then you can give it to anybody. To be honest, I don't even think that he's on Pittsburgh's roster next year. He's also a unrestricted free agent. So,
I mean, I wouldn't mind picking him up as a backup if we don't believe in Hooker.
well, it's very clear to me that we don't believe in Hooker.
Yeah,
but we'll see. I mean, I don't know where these guys go. It's all just guesses. But
all right. So what are you thinking on Pittsburgh then?
So I guess I would like to give them a wide receiver, but Egbuka's gone. I'll give them Matthew Golden. They need somebody to pair with George Pickens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chargers. This is an interesting one. Running back, wide receiver, tight end, and edge are listed there. I don't know enough about Amari and Hampton to know whether he is truly worth a mid first round pick. We've kind of gone through the history of first round running backs and how they don't work out to their draft placement far more often than they do, and that you can get so many more in later rounds. So I don't feel like, even though he is the highest rated halfback, I think we just go with Shamar Stewart, the best player available at their position of need.
Yeah, I like it. This is where I've been mocking Ashton Jeanty going.
To the Chargers?
Yeah, this is the Chargers.
You think he's going to last till 22?
So Dane Brugler from The Athletic has 8 running backs in his top 100 picks. It's arguably the deepest position group in the entire class. So, like, do you want to be the first team to take the first running back? Or would you say we're going to push the market down and we can get Omari and Hampton at 32, maybe we trade up 8 picks to get that guy, or do we sit here at 12 and take Ashton Jeanty? Like, to the Cowboys is the most popular spot for. They're not drafting Colston Loveland. You're just drafting for helmets, Danny. So like, I think that even though there's a lot of good running backs in this class, the fact that there are a lot of them is going to push down the demand because the supply is so high.
Yeah.
So, anyways, but that's
push down the value.
About. Right.
The demand will still be there, but the value will be down. Right.
Well, you won't need. I mean, just on a pure like economic supply and demand kind of idea. There's so many of them that you don't have to be like, well, we have to get one, otherwise we won't get one. Right. So like that's the point. So
what you're saying, running back is a commodity this year in draft.
I think it's always a commodity.
Easy to acquire.
Yeah, it's even in classes with quote unquote poor running back classes, I think that it's not something that any team has to rush out there and trip over themselves to acquire. It's becoming more important in the NFL as like Vic Fangio's defense continues to spread with this too high look, because you can just check to a running play and you have a numbers advantage in the running game.
Right.
So like, I think that this is the switch, the move back towards running backs becoming more important. But I don't think that they can ever be so important that they're ever going to beat the problem that they have, is that every year there's a ton of these guys.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Because half of the best athletes in college were running backs in high school, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the Packers are on the board. I cannot believe that they don't have tackle listed as one of their needs. I will give them Gray Zabel, who, even though he has tackle listed next to his name, he took reps at the Senior Bowl at center.
Oh, interesting.
So if you hit on first look and we get his height, weight, that kind of area, 6'6", 305. That's a really big center, right?
Yeah.
But he has positional versatility from center to tackle. And I don't remember if guard is another issue for them. But I think that he's just a good football player that has that kind of. We'll slot him in here first, and if it doesn't work out, we have another spot that he can play.
Right on. Vikings are on the board. Running back, guard, defensive line, and cornerback. And I think with that, you take the best player at the highest position of value, which is going to be your defensive line. So they're going to go Derek Harmon from Oregon.
So I'm of the opinion that interior offensive line play is such a big problem for the Houston Texans that they actually have to force this need. And so I'm going to give them, when you click on IOL, I'm going to give them Tyler Booker from Alabama.
So we're going to team need philosophy here.
That was what,
right?
Because I think that need is so. I think that need effectively derailed them in multiple games over the course of the 24 season.
Yeah.
So, I think that it has to be addressed. It is a hole in a ship that you got to plug your finger in, basically.
Yeah. The Rams are in a similar position where they need offensive line help. Tyler Higbee came back. He played okay in a couple games. He came back. But he is a mid-tier tight end at all.
Mm-hmm.
But the offensive line play was what cost them the game in part. Offensively cost them the game against Philadelphia. Defensively, they couldn't tackle Saquon Barkley to save their lives. And an offensive tackle won't change that. That's where you start looking at your linebackers and stuff like that. So I'm really struggling between, do we go with a tackle or do we go with the best linebacker in the class? And I feel like sometimes, we kind of talked about this previously, sometimes you just lean into your strength because you can't build up your deficit or reduce your deficit on your weakness quick enough. And I feel like just them leaning into their offense and making sure that their offense can outscore what their defense gives up is a pretty reasonable strategy for them. So I'm going to go with Josh Simmons and feel dirty again clicking
I think that's the right pick, though, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah.
And once he gets into LA, he puts on a new helmet. It's no longer a Buckeye helmet, so it'll be fine.
That's true. So this pick to me comes down to whether or not the Ravens want to re-sign Ronnie Stanley, their left tackle. Mm-hmm. He's played well when he's healthy, but that's a big question mark. So they drafted a right tackle in the second round from Washington last year, Richard Rosengarten, something like that. Played all right. Played like a rookie. They have drafted later rounds for their interior offensive line for a while. So to me, this pick should scream left tackle, and I'm just going to give him Josh Connerly based on need, almost completely based on need, because I don't think that they're going to sink another big contract into a guy going into his third contract who has injury issues. So,
yeah. All right. We're at the Lions. So
don't
I'm
fuck
curious
up, Mike. Don't fuck up.
I know.
That'll kill you.
I am curious who I mean, there's only a couple people watching right now, but I'm sure Danny's out there. Who would you guys choose for the Lions? We've got center, guard, edge, and linebacker. I'm a little surprised on linebacker because it seems to be one of our deeper areas. Drew's got his hand up. Drew, what do you think?
Mike, will you do me a favor, please?
Absolutely.
Now, this is just because I know that Pro Football Focus is fucked up on their board. Will you go to linebackers?
I will.
It's the kid from Georgia.
Jalen Walker.
So first of all, the Lions have wanted a true Sam linebacker, so a linebacker that can rush the passer, for a long time. And they have tried to take Derek Barnes, who was a more traditional middle linebacker, and convert him into that role. Just to show you the disparity here in big boards and like takes on this player, Dane Brugler from The Athletic has Jalen Walker as his third overall prospect.
Oh, like third on the big board.
Third overall of everybody.
Wow.
And for whatever reason, PFF has him as like in the 50s, 32.
Yeah.
So like
average draft position at 42.
Everyone seems to agree though that this guy, his best, the thing that he does the best is rush the passer. Cool. I did a draft today. I took Jalen Walker at this spot just because I knew he would be there because no one's going to overdraft him, because it's an AI that's running the model.
Right.
And then I just backfilled a bunch of pass rushers in like the second and third round and was like, and if this shit happens like this is a guy that you trade up for as far as I'm concerned. But like, yeah, so like,
and I was looking at the interior offensive line just to see, like, if we wanted to force it, we're looking at third round talent.
At 28.
Right, at 28. So this is off the board, right? We just can't, even though it's a team need, we can't do it.
So one thing that I want to talk about that no draft board does well is like Membo is as much of a guard as he is a tackle right now. But because he's listed as tackle, because that's the first place the teams want this kind of guy to work out, they're going to draft him there to play first. Now, Detroit doesn't have a position for a guy like this to say, we're going to try you out at tackle, and if you don't work, we'll move you inside, because they already have two good tackles. So like, our team needs or whatever say center and guard, and like, but it wouldn't look like a fit because Membo's listed as a tackle. But like, you could take him and play him at guard. You're going to get crushed on the like how well you fit the need to the player score that they give you, but that's bullshit anyway. So I mean, like, I don't know that you should feel bad about it.
All right, so we could be Membo. We've got an edge. I do believe we're going to take a run at Myles Garrett. I don't know if we're going to end up with him at this point. Let's assume that we don't, because Brad has never shown in his history to go after that type of player in the trade market. So the question is, do we take the best edge? Do we take the best tackle / guard? Or do we go with Jalen Walker, the linebacker?
So, like, I firmly believe that, like, in real life, if the board felt like this, they would just turn the card in for Jalen Walker. But like, right, that doesn't matter. Like, this is who you would take. Like, so like Nick Skirton is like a young Marcus Davenport.
Yeah.
So like that, we know the Lions like those kind of guys, and here one is,
Yeah.
So
high win rate, high grade on the pass rush side.
What does he do badly?
He's doesn't seem to do anything badly.
Right, and he's big, like 6'4", 280. So
I would say if we don't land Myles Garrett, I think they take Skirton here. If we do, I think we take Walker. But since we haven't landed him, I think we go Skirton.
We're not going to land Myles Garrett. It's ridiculous. I'm trying to set up a Zoom call with one of the Roar of the Lions UK's guys to go over like the
nice.
math on the a potential Garrett trade. Like I did it the other day, and I spent like an hour and a half like trying to project out through 2026 because I think that you can easily absorb Myles Garrett on his, and I don't want to derail this, but like
Yeah.
you can absorb him at 19 and 20 million on the roster the Lions have right now and going into the 25 year and still do things like sign your rookie class and like, but I don't know that you can sign Carlton Davis. I don't know that you can re-sign Kevin Zeitler, and have, I mean, you and I did a thing a year or so ago where we're like, how many guys can you have on your roster that cost you $10 million a year?
Yeah.
So in 2026, when we have like a lot of extensions start to kick in for guys like Ali McNeil, Amon-Ra St. Brown, that group, you're going to have, the Lions already have like 6 guys with over 10 million bucks a year, and most of those guys are over 20 million bucks a year. Some of them are in their 30s. So I mean, I do believe that like they could figure out a way to make him work, but like I don't believe that if you trade for Myles Garrett and then extend him, which should be the goal, is to keep him on the team as long as possible.
Yep.
In my humble football opinion, I don't think that you can add a guy that's going to be making another $30 million unless you're ready to move off of Jared Goff.
Yeah.
So
70. He's gonna have a cap hit of 70 million in 2026.
So that number, click on the drop down and look at his restructure potential because it's like 40 million bucks.
Yeah.
So like that number screams we're restructuring you in this year.
Yeah. And essentially what that's going to do is change some of that guaranteed salary into signing bonus, spread it out over a couple of void years.
Yeah. So to me the Myles Garrett stuff comes down to like, I think if you trade for him and then extend him, you have to make decisions on players like Jahmyr Gibbs, Jameson Williams, Kirby Joseph, and whether
Montgomery's had gone right at that point because you can't keep 2 10, 12, $14 million running backs. So
well, they've
Monty
already extended
goes.
David Montgomery. So I mean, if you're doing that, you're eating a shit ton of money over.
Well, I mean, like we don't keep Monty after his current contract extension is done.
His current contract extension takes him through like 2027.
Is it that long? Holy
They signed him and then they've already extended him again for another 2 years. Yeah, he's on the team like through 2027, and like at that price,
yeah, but zero guaranteed salary, and
you're going to save $3.5 million. I mean, like when you're talking about
yeah,
paying
I think
Myles
we keep
Garrett
him in 2026.
$35 million, like I don't know that you're like we have to get rid of Montgomery in order to keep.
No, I think it's this year that we would get rid of him. The $7 million savings year.
I mean, and that's fine, but like even at like in 2027, when you're looking at paying Jahmyr Gibbs $22 million a year, or whatever, like however much that, I mean, like, and then you have to do that for Laporta and Brian Branch and Jack Campbell and all those other guys. Like you have at some point, Myles Garrett's costing you those guys.
Yeah.
So just which ones do you want them to lose?
Yep. All right, Washington's on the clock. We got the last 4 picks.
Am I odd?
This is odd. Yeah, you're odd. No, you're definitely odd.
I'm definitely odd.
It's part of your charm, though, so it's okay.
I'm giving them Colston Loveland, even though it's not a list. Like I think that Colston Loveland with what's the guy's name? I can't remember. What's the quarterback's name from Washington? Daniels.
Jaden.
That would just be a lot of fun. a lot of fun to watch to me. So
Yep, and I think Buffalo on the clock here. I think they take Jalen Walker.
sure.
They defense is where they need the. I mean, having Josh Allen with another threat as a wide receiver, that's great. You can get them in the next round, but take the best linebacker.
Bembo, clear need. They can't not have it.
You think it's a need after watching the Super Bowl?
Well, I
Holy
don't think that
cow!
either of their tackles are any good, and they're like their starting guard Trey Smith or whatever.
Yeah,
He's he's like the second or third highest ranked available free agent. So I mean, like, and then like it doesn't even do any good to like really franchise tag him, in my opinion, because they combine all of the offensive linemen into one tag. So if you take the top 5 offensive lineman tags and what their contracts are worth, they're all tackles.
yeah.
And so you're going to be paying your left guard as if he's a tackle, all guaranteed. Like, and they just don't have the room. You have to draft these guys. So
And then you come to the Eagles with the 32nd pick. Interestingly, they've got 4 needs listed, and they just won the Super Bowl in convincing fashion. And just as we look at the PFF grade, they were the #1 overall team. Other than tackling, which you don't draft tackler, but like where are they not elite? Right, they've got an elite run game. Their overall defense is elite. Pass rush is elite. Coverage is elite. Their offense is I don't even know what they really need. And looking at where we're at on the board, I guess maybe Amos, but like, I mean, as we can see, like coverage, they're already elite.
well,
And maybe they do that and let a guy like Darius Slay walk. I don't know when his contract's up, but like that kind of thing. Let one of those guys go, bring this guy in. I'm not sure what else they do, to be honest.
so like Philadelphia is the one. I mean, outside of the Lions, I think Philadelphia is the team that has the least obvious need
Yeah,
on their roster. Howie Roseman should have a statue outside that stadium for how well he's put together the Eagles over the long haul here. But
yeah.
like,
I'm sure Michael Wharton to be if he's ever watched us on video on demand, he'll approve that message.
yeah. So to me, like one of the things that Howie Roseman has said is that he'd rather be a year too early than a year too late. So if there is a guy that we don't think they have an obvious need or something, like, do they? All right. do they take a guy and stash him for a year? You know, and so
Yeah, I was just gonna see when Slay's contract is up.
well, he has no more guaranteed money in the upcoming season. So this would be the last year that he's probably. So if you want to take a corner
Yeah,
and sit him behind Darius Slay for a year and like apprentice, here's an
yeah.
opportunity to do just that.
I think that's probably just. I mean, there's just they're a lot like us. They're stacked basically everywhere. There's no glaring hole, no glaring need. So let's just go with. I'm gonna go with East Carolina only because how often are East Carolina players drafted in the first round? So I'm just gonna do that because I don't know the difference between these guys at this
Well,
point. So
overwhelmingly, most of these guys are zone corners. And like if this guy hadn't torn his knee, he'd be top 15 pick. So like
got a really high man coverage grade too. Overall coverage grade is great. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Siobhan Revel
yeah.
to round out our first round draft.
So considering that at one point we had 7 people watching and then now we're down to 1, and that's probably Kathy. I don't know. Maybe it's Danny who's playing video games and listening at the same time. Like, I don't know how effective like this was, but
Yeah,
hopefully what we tried to accomplish was, like, I don't know that you could fit any GM into saying like he never does this and he always does that. Like that doesn't seem true to me.
Right.
Like, and so like Dr. Detroit was saying like what did he say here? He said Brad doesn't do that. He moves to where he thinks the player will be, select the guy that he wants. He doesn't just sit there and wait to pick BPA other than Sewell and Hutch, which dropped into his lap. So like here's the thing, is just like if you're picking at 7 and you take Penny Sewell, I mean Penny Sewell could have, I mean, the debate in that draft class was, do the Bengals take Penny Sewell or Jamar Chase at 5? Yeah. And so Penny Sewell did kind of drop into Brad Holmes' lap because he's an excellent tackle, and like Aiden Hutchinson did kind of drop into Brad Holmes' lap because Trent Baalke, the then GM of the Jaguars, refuses to draft Michigan players because he hates Jim Harbaugh. So I
understand the second part, but the first part, no.
It makes sense to hate a guy that's just been good anywhere that he's ever coached, but like we're putting that aside, like I think that there's a good argument to make that like those guys did drop into his lap. They fit needs, and they are players at extreme positions of value.
Yeah.
So like I don't understand how anybody can say, not the Dr. Detroit saying this, but like I don't know how anybody can say Brad does do this or he does not do that. Like you can find, he's one of the more unique GMs.
Yeah.
I think in the NFL, which makes it a lot of fun to closely examine like the team that he is running. But like whether it's Howie Roseman or Les Snead or Mickey Loomis down there in New Orleans just doing his mad science shit, like it's still interesting to try and figure out like what those guys are doing, and like I think that you could point to a team like New Orleans and be like, it's very clear that they're not drafting for positional need, and like in order to help fix their cap over the next 2 or 3 seasons, if they were going to do a hard reset, that would probably be the best method to help them fix their cap long term. And then maybe they can get their roster back to a place where you can go a little bit more heavy into best player available or draft for need, or eventually like using those picks to acquire proven NFL talent. So like maybe it's just a timing issue.
Yeah.
On a lot of these different rosters. So that's what's interesting, is trying to figure that out.
Well, it's been fun. I think the first third of the draft is kind of where we really went into the different draft strategies, explained why, when, how teams would use them, and then the last probably 2/3 was just more traditional mock draft fun.
Yeah.
But I hope everybody enjoyed kind of learning and talking about the different strategies that are out there. I enjoyed talking about it. So.
Yeah, we got some fun dates coming up here as far as the NFL is concerned. Like we should be getting, hey Hatters, that's okay, buddy. We hope you like this one.
Yep.
Appreciate the rewatch.
Yep.
But
we did a mock draft, so you'll love it.
Yeah, I hope you love it. Yeah. We have some dates coming up. Obviously, like the tag window is open. The combine is coming up, and really, I think until that, what I'm doing as far as like the Lions roster is I'm seeing if comment on the Discord, Bullseye. I'm seeing if they're going to re-sign people on their current roster, depth guys. And then I'm tracking to see who other teams cut, who will not count as unrestricted free agents if you bring them in. So, like, the guy right now that I like the Lions to go sign is Kendall Fuller from Miami, just for straight cornerback depth. Just a veteran corner. Mike disappeared. Mike's got this thing. There he goes. There's Mike.
We're back.
Yeah.
Misclick. So these are the dates to watch for the NFL. So the 24th is a Monday. So next Monday is when the combine happens at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indy. Beautiful field. And then we get into March, which is when you have to have that designation for franchise or transition tags on March 4th. And March 10th and the 12th is when they start doing that whole like negotiation period. And then bam, March 12th is when the league year free agency opens. So the next 3.5 to 4 weeks are going to be pretty interesting. It'll be fun to watch the young guys at the combine, and then I'll be really curious to see how that early negotiation period is for the free agencies.
Yeah. So, are we going to get Kevin Zeitler and Carlton Davis back? Or make a huge move? Like I still don't think the Browns are going to be like, oh no, we're going to do the rest of the NFL a favor, and we'll take this huge hit on our cap so that you guys can get
Yeah,
Myles Garrett. So I think that is. I would be unbelievably surprised. Is what
I think it's worth trying. Like I think you're gonna have teams take a run at it. It's just gonna be really hard for them to do.
I heard
And
that.
not everybody has the assets that they want to give up.
Sure. I heard that. I think it was the Oakland Raiders called the Jacksonville Jaguars and asked if Trevor Lawrence was available
Interesting.
last week. So
Z and CD3
and picks instead of Garrett, no matter how awesome he is. Zeitler and Carlton Davis and picks.
instead of, so basically keep those guys, sign those, use the money that you would have to do for Garrett, keep those picks, keep those guys, and say no to Garrett.
Yeah, that's
the way that I'm reading that.
That's the path that I prefer they take.
We spent a year where we only 8 players short on D, 18 players short on D. How much would Garrett have changed that? Probably a lot.
And that's the debate between. I mean, so like, I don't think that even though he is a player on defense, one of the few who is capable of completely taking over a game by themselves, I don't think that you can ever say we're just going to take this player off of this team. We will put him in this position retroactively and say he would have saved the season.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that. I think that that's an exercise in hope, and so I don't want to knock it, but like I don't think that there's the certainty about those kinds of what if scenarios that people like to assign to them.
I would get a lot of butterfly effect stuff, right? Because say he was on our team at the beginning of last year, and it's him and Hutch.
Mm-hmm.
Does Hutch break his leg? I don't know. Like maybe Hutch has a clearer shot at the quarterback on that particular play because Garrett was already, he was coming from the other side. Like there's too many butterfly effect types of things to say,
Right. It's not going to work out the same way because he's there, right? His presence changes the outcome. So I'm of the opinion, like Detroit under this regime has arrived at this point because they have just identified and continued to draft good football players. Myles Garrett's a good football player. No one's denying that. But like, I don't think that he is worth 5 players.
Yeah.
So if you want to combine the picks and like the guys that the opportunity cost of losing other players, like I just don't think that almost anybody. I mean, maybe some quarterbacks are worth 5 guys, but like I don't know. I have a hard time believing it.
Yeah, I think
fun to watch. It would be fun to watch.
We would have won if we only had 10 players on IR. This 8 of them back would have made us as good as Diaz Philly. I get what you're saying now. We lost 18 guys. If we had lost just half of that, like a normal team, we would have our team would be so much better having even just half of those guys back for the year, and we're gonna presumably get all of them back unless we let some of them walk in free agency. So our team will by default be better than we were the last half of the season because all our injured players will be back. So do we actually need a Myles Garrett when we were healthy? We were a top 3 defense, top 5 defense, right?
It would be. This is where I would want that like magic item, so I could look into another dimension.
Oh right, yeah,
and be like, oh, okay, so like this is in my dimension. Like Detroit didn't trade for Myles Garrett, but I can look and see what it would look like, and that's really fun.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to see what it looks like to have a healthy Aiden Hutchinson and then like Myles Garrett screaming off the edge for a whole season. That would just be great. That would just be great.
It'd be so much fun to watch. As St. Brown said, who needs corners when you have that?
Right, and like there's probably something to that because like if you knock a half a second off of your pass rush because you have those two guys, like those corners do not need to work as hard.
Yeah.
And the safeties can be more aggressive, and so I think that would, his presence would help things. I'm not arguing against how good the guy is.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I just don't know that he can, like, he doesn't block, for Jahmyr Gibbs on when the offense gets the ball, and like the one silver lining in all the injuries last year is that almost none of them were on offense. They're almost all of them were on defense. And like
18 of 21.
If this team had lost Penei Sewell or Amon-Ra St. Brown or Frank Ragnow, like I think that any one of those injuries is worth maybe 10 guys on defense. So like I don't know how much Myles Garrett shifts that back to like, the middle, even though I would love to have a player like Myles Garrett on the team, but we might have Myles Garrett Jr. on the team. He's probably not going to be as good as Myles Garrett, but like Aiden is really good, and like he might not need a Myles Garrett opposite him in order to like have the type of seasons that Myles Garrett has put up. He might just need Nick Skirton, or
if our roster level wasn't so close to like such a high floor, then I think we take that risk of getting a guy like Garrett. Because right now we don't need the picks, right? Like whoever we're taking at 28 will make the team almost assuredly, right? But like, are they going to start? Maybe. We may not. He may not even start just because we have so few starting holes in our lineup. So while we could just use those picks in that less need special and use those to get Garrett, it's not the picks that is the problem. It's the cap. With where we're at, the guys that we've re-signed, the guys that we're going to re-sign, and as much as even you said, like, I'm coming around to like the cap doesn't matter, it still does, right? Like there's still cap management that we need to do, and throwing 25 or 30 million dollars at Garrett is going to be the challenging part. It would have to be an extension. It'd have to be running that signing bonus out to drop those cap numbers across his years. I think it's doable. I'm just not sure that they want to both do the cap stuff and the draft asset stuff because you're gonna have to do both to make it work. If you only had to worry about the draft asset stuff and we didn't have to worry about cap, or vice versa, like I think you would do it. But to have to try to make both of those work is going to be a bigger challenge.
Yeah, and if this was even a year ago, you might have been able to, like, heading into this season, it might have been feasible because you have time, but like you've already started to commit to the extensions of these draft guys that you had. And I think the money that's already been handed out is the kind of money that's prohibitive.
Yeah.
to
If we hadn't
keeping
done
him.
a Lee McNeil at close to 30 million bucks,
Right.
but we did,
Right.
right? If we hadn't already done, that kind of stuff, I think if they could go back, if they saw this coming, right? They had their magic 8 ball, their crystal ball, and they could see this coming. I do wonder if they actually extend Lee McNeil, or if they go, that's what we want. Because I would trade a Lee McNeil for Miles Garrett,
Sure. I mean that,
right?
yeah, like
But
if it's
but they
like,
didn't have that
right,
a
like
year ago, right? So
you can, if you didn't have a Lee McNeil and you had Miles Garrett, and that's who you're giving the 30, mid $30 million to,
yeah,
or whatever, like, okay, that's a little bit easier to stomach, and like, yeah, it hurts, but like, okay, you have Miles Garrett, like there's a lot of, you
yeah,
take away a lot of the pain, but like now that you have extended those guys, and like you're not going to not extend Aiden Hutchinson,
yeah.
like,
There's no takebacks on those
right,
contracts. You can't be like, sorry, Aleem, just kidding. We're gonna void that. We're not gonna give that to you. That's just not the way that works. So,
yeah. So I would be
um,
surprised, but I would
yeah.
probably also find a way to be excited about it if it happens. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like, how could you not be?
yeah,
Yeah. So, all right, Drew. It's always a blast talking about the Lions. Off season is where we get to do the roster construction fun, which is the things that we both really enjoy. So this is always a good time.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Well, obviously, like we're in a little bit of a mini dead zone right now before the combine, but once again, if you guys have any ideas for content, we'd love to hear them. And
Yeah.
we will be starting to plan out our what do we call it again?
Our live mock draft.
Live mock draft. It's like, what is it?
Yeah.
I thought we had a
Like
name for the
we called it
people.
like the 8-man mock. I think is what
8-man
we called
mock.
it.
I like
Yeah.
that. That's great. So we're going to start planning that out. We'll be reaching out to some people to help pull that off, and that should be a lot of fun. So
Agreed. All right. Until next Tuesday at 7, we will see you all. Appreciate you guys and gal up there, Kathy as well. Can't forget about her for popping in the chat and making this even more fun. See you
appreciate
next
it, guys.
Tuesday. See ya.